Hello everyone, my name is Tiho. I'm from an organization called Transitions. Welcome to the first live session of the social media course within the SAMI project. I will be your facilitator today. Most of you have chosen to follow via the platform itself. That is fine. You can use the chat facility below the video screen to ask questions during the sessions and after the session. And in case of your inability to actually use that chat, you can always email us or try to contact us via the Hangout chat if you are in the Hangout. The session will take around 90 minutes. It will be presented by Jaro, who's already been in touch with you. He will be your mentor on this course. The project director, Tom Lansner, is also joining us, so he will be here. And I welcome you to this course and wish you a successful work. Now I hand over to Jaro, who will start with his presentation shortly.
Okay, thank you, Tiho. I hope everyone can hear me and see me clearly. If not, feel free to write in the chats, and together with Tiho, we'll try to do something with that. Welcome today for the first session of our Social Media for Change course. If there are some of you who couldn't join us live right now, don't worry, all of that is being recorded, so you will have a chance to look at it and see it all, and then communicate with me via email or via forums or any way that you prefer. So, in next 90 minutes, we will have the first session. Please be ready that I will deliver a lot of information to you. Unfortunately, we cannot be all together in person in one room right now, which would be great to have a lively conversation, but well, we have to rely on online systems and social media. So I will deliver the information, but it doesn't mean that there's no interaction. You can ask me questions. Feel free to ask questions during my presentation, but also I will ask you to ask questions in certain parts of my presentation, so we can have a little chat during the presentation about the topics I am presenting. So right now we're gonna go to share my screen with you so you can see the slides that I prepared for you. So give me a second. Okay, and here we go to my slides. I hope you can see them. If not, Tiho or anybody, just let me know if there is any problem. I titled my presentation as Social Media Communication for Change. The change word is the important one there, because most of you are working in the field where you are trying to actually improve the reality or the situation in your communities, in your societies, in your countries. And social media can be, there is a potential, can be a useful tool that can help you with that. But simply having a Facebook page is not gonna do much of the work. Right? It's a way more complex process that I would like to introduce in order to help you to understand the potential of social media and also get some more direct experience with some of the methods, tactics, and tools that are available out there for you to use. Uh, there's no surprise that these days most or majority of the breaking news are no longer delivered to people by professional journalists or traditional media. There are so many cases already of incidents that happened and first were reported by citizens with mobile phones who were simply standing by and were the witnesses of those events. I think for the first time the discussion was raised after the crash of a plane into the Hudson River in New York, when the first images of the plane were brought by bystanders who simply took the picture with their phone and tweeted it. And only after that it made its way to the news. So there's no surprise that people really do use mobile communication and social media in crisis situations, such as the conflicts, such as the environmental disasters or man-made disasters. And I really like this sign that says, "In case of fire, exit building before tweeting about it," because it does really explain the new reality. And I would like to cover some of it as well. The means of communication are numerous, right? We have the traditional media, such as the television, the radio, the newspaper. But since the development of social media, there are a number of other channels as well. And there's a lot of discussion of what is the role of this old media, such as television and radio, and this so-called new media, such as Facebook, Twitter, and others these days. I don't really like this distinction because what we see is simply kind of merging of all those channels in together. We can see traditional journalists using Twitter and Facebook very effectively to collect information and publish it in the traditional media. The traditional media are using social media as a source of information, but still, majority of information that gets a lot of attention is simply delivered by the mainstream media and then shared on social media. So this is kind of a new media reality. And if you want to be successful communicators in your campaigns, for your organizations, for your causes, you need to be able to create a good mix of all those channels. What I mean by that, simply, if your target audience are young people, maybe global young people living around the world, well, Facebook or Twitter can be very handy and useful tools to deliver your information. But if you need to target audiences, let's say women 60 plus years old, well, obviously, probably Facebook will not be the best channel to communicate with them. There might be other ones, such as television or printed materials. So please, really let's not get too much excited about the social media these days, because really, if you want to be successful, you need to leverage the potential of all available communication channels. Maybe you know this picture. 2011, the so-called Arab Spring, wave of revolutions starting in Tunisia and then spreading throughout North Africa and the Middle East. And there was a lot of excitement about these new technologies, such as Facebook. Sometimes these revolutions are being called the Facebook revolutions, or Twitter revolutions, or YouTube revolutions. And there's no question that social media played, and internet in general, played very important role in these events. It enabled people to share information more quickly, to circumvent the censorship, to get the news to the people, to mobilize people to get out to the streets. So there's no question about that. But in the end, what are the results? We can see that the situation didn't really improve in those countries such as Egypt. And the question is, what happened? What went wrong? And partly it's the social media that enabled quick action but didn't really help to deliver long-term solutions, long-term collaborations towards one goal. So we can see both the potential but also the disadvantage of being able to communicate quickly these days. At the same time, there is a lot of criticism of variety of campaigns that are being organized by organizations, UN agencies, and others that are asking people to click likes on the Facebook or to share the information on Facebook. This picture kind of nicely illustrates that this is how your likes on Facebook help fight hunger and disease, right? So it's kind of a criticism that, you know, liking things on Facebook are not going to bring necessary food, water, or any other any necessary equipment to those who are in need. I kind of disagree with this. Of course, just simple liking things is not a solution. We call it lazy activism, right? For people, it is easy to sit at the internet, watching the news feed and clicking like on different important things, but not really doing anything in the real world. But if you use social media smartly in a planned and strategic way, I really do believe that even like clicking or share clicking can deliver a social change, can deliver a help. And I will try to persuade you, especially during this first session where I would like to present you campaigns or projects that were being done by different groups of organizations or activists that really meant significant change. And later on in next sessions, we can go and we will go more into details about the tools that were being used. Maybe you will think that some of the cases that I will present are too distant. Well, it's not the case. I mean, they are from all over the world, and they were not super complicated to organize. I will explain later. Maybe you are asking, and I see it very often when I do some trainings in different parts of the world, that, you know, we have a Facebook page and nobody is liking, nobody is commenting, so it doesn't work, right? And these are very often our expectations, right? There are social media, there's Facebook, so we just go out there and we start sharing or distributing our messages, and we expect that there are people watching, listening, and joining. But usually this is not the case, and that's where most of the disappointment comes from. Social media do not work like this, that people would be listening to you and you would be the speaker with so many interesting things to share. Social media work more like this. It's a social space where there are many people enjoying their lives, having fun with friends, with colleagues, with family relatives. But there is no central point, you know, there's nobody who would be the one who kind of gets the attention of all. If you join this community by simply entering the door and starting yelling, look, we have this case and we have this cause and it's so important, people will think that, you know, you're crazy. Why are you doing that? The way to engage in social media is to simply get into those communities, starting listening, what are these people talking about, and slowly starting delivering the message you want to deliver. And this is one of the key points I want to make here right now at the beginning. It is not just about Twitter and Facebook. It is about communities, building connections, and building collaborations together. Who knows in 5 years where Facebook and Twitter will be? Nobody knows. I mean, it's such a rapid development in the field of social media and all the new applications that nobody can really be sure if in 3, 5 years Facebook will be still existing. That's a question. According to statistics, even young people are slowly moving away from Facebook because simply it's no longer their private space. Their parents joined Facebook, their teachers joined Facebook, and simply, you know, for young people, it's no longer their own community. So they are finding other alternative online communities and applications where they can socialize with their peers and friends, such as Instagram, Snapchat, and many other that maybe we don't even know their names. So really, we cannot predict what the situation will be. So I would like to ask you to focus not just on the tools, but on the reality that it's about building communities, conversations, connections with people, and collaborating together towards certain goals. We will see how the session goes, how much time do we spend on each of the topic. This is my idea how I would like to split the sessions. The first one today is about introduction, and I want to present, as I mentioned already, some of the good practices and case studies to show you that there are actually a lot of different methods how you can use internet and social media to make some effective change. In the next session next week, I would like to go more deeper into the question of how it is important to be able to provide content that is interesting, and not just content itself, but also to think about in which formats you can deliver it, because people no longer read that much. They're becoming lazy. It's just too much information out there for them, and reading, unfortunately, takes a lot of time to consume information. So you really need to start thinking visually how the information you have, how the messages you have, how the content you have can be turned into something that is visually attractive, because this will increase highly your visibility on social media, on Facebook and others. And in the third session, we'll go deeper into social networking. We will talk about Facebook and other channels of communication. I will give you some tips, tricks, and we'll have a discussion about maybe your projects and your campaigns that you already tried, and we will see how it went. So this is brief introduction. I will now jump back into the chat to see if there are already some questions, and we will continue very soon. Okay. Okay, I can see. Thank you, Tom, for commenting. If any one of you have the question already, feel free to post it on the live events page. So, okay, so I'll keep going, and I'll ask Tiho and Tom to alert me if there really were some questions. Yeah. Okay. I can see questions or comments from Ulan. What about Avas organization? They actively use different varieties of social media. Does it work? Well, look, we can look at them more deeper next time. I know Avas very well. It's an initiative that tries to mobilize people through online petitions around certain cases. I'm sure they are very successful in collecting enormous amounts of information. The question is if it really works. What is the evaluation of that? Please let me look into that. I'll try to find out more information, whether there is already an evaluation of their campaigns. And let me get back to you next time. We can have a discussion about it. Okay? Cool. So let's go on. Let me share the screen with you again, and we'll keep going with my presentation. So this was the introduction that I was talking about, and now let's go to the content of the training. As I mentioned, it's not just about posting things on Facebook. These are some of the methods that can be used by you or others very effectively to do something, to change something. So I called it being social and active on social media and the internet. And these are just some of the main methods that organization can use to either deliver the message or to really mobilize people to do something. The examples I will be showing and demonstrating are mostly from my own experience. As a trainer, I really prefer to share experiences and good practices that I've been through, because I believe that's an effective way. You can see it from the inside. I can share with you all the good things and bad things that happen. So the examples I will be using are to a large extent my own, so feel free really to ask any questions. I'll be happy to provide necessary background. So let's see what the methods available out there. Well, one of them is, we can call it the self-promotion. Then there is something called crowdsourcing. Then there are watchdog activities. And then there is campaigning. Let me now more into detail describe each one of those methods to give you a better idea what I mean by them. So self-promotion, well, that's what many organizations are aiming for when they use social media. It's simply letting the people know that they exist, advertising themselves, building public relations, so using media to let the world know about what they are doing. It can be used for fundraising. Simply, if you need to raise funds, well, first, people and potential donors need to know about you, need to know about your work. That's why you need good marketing or advertising of yourself, right? You need to be able to clearly describe what are you doing, to promote yourself, to make yourself unique among all the other hundreds and thousands of other organizations and groups that are working in the field. Self-promotion is important if you need to recruit new staff or new volunteers, right, to get the people know about you. We can call it marketing in general. The same way as corporations and private businesses are using marketing to deliver products and deliver messages to people, well, the same can be used by NGOs and other actors in the public sector to deliver important messages and sometimes to deliver products as well to people. So we'll look at more into that later on in next sessions when I'll be talking about effective use of Facebook and other social media to promote yourself. But for now, I'd like to focus on some of the other methods. Maybe you've heard about crowdsourcing already. Normally, I would like to ask you to give me the definition, but through these online channels, it would be a little confusing process, I'm sure. So let me give you the definition myself right here. What is crowdsourcing? It's simply using the large number of people to obtain either needed services, ideas, or content. Crowdsourcing was here even in the past, even before internet. Any money collection, public collection was basically crowdsourcing. But online media and social media make crowdsourcing way more effective, simply because more and more people are connected, more and more people can share information, and more people can work together to do something. And it's really, really a new reality these days. Uh, and we can utilize it in many, many ways. One of the examples, maybe you remember 2010, massive earthquake hit Haiti, a country in the Caribbean that was hit by this earthquake, and it was a massive disaster. The earthquake lasted for some 36 seconds. In that time, over 150,000 people died, hundreds of thousands of people were injured and needed medical attention. Hundreds of people were buried under the rubble because the earthquake hit the metropolitan area. It hit the Port-au-Prince, which is the capital, where millions of people live. And because Haiti is one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, you can imagine what the quality of the construction of the buildings were. So even though the earthquake was not like super strong, like the one in Japan or elsewhere, the consequences were very devastating because most of the structures simply collapsed, burying people under the rubble. In hospitals, the presidential palace collapsed, the House of Parliament collapsed, police stations, firemen stations, and all the important infrastructure collapsed. So you can imagine what chaos and what situation it meant at that time for the people on the ground. It made thousands, dozens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands of people homeless. People needed to move to the streets. One reason was that they were afraid of the aftershocks, that the houses will collapse again, but also simply because they have no other place to go and live. And so they ended up in IDP camps, totally dependent on humanitarian workers and humanitarian aid. So in this situation, if you imagine yourself being a rescue worker or a humanitarian worker, it's super difficult to understand where the people are and what services, what assistance do they need. But there was one interesting thing. Only 2 days after the earthquake, the mobile networks were up and running again. And at that time, it was probably the first time a disaster like that, that people with their cheap cell phones were able to communicate through text messages and through calling to inform their relatives inside the country or outside the country about their needs that they have. So that was a moment when we decided with a group of friends, let's try to collect information from all available sources, such as text messages, Twitter, Facebook, and let's try to organize this information and make it accessible and understandable for search and rescue teams and humanitarian workers, because they simply don't have the capacity to process such a vast amounts of information, because they were sitting on the airport not really knowing where to go. So we set up a web page called the Ushahidi Haiti page, and we started mapping all these pieces of information. We started bringing them together, visualizing them on the map, categorizing them into different categories that you can see on the right. There were messages. There were messages dealing with. In next sessions, when I'll be talking about effective use. I'm sorry, can somebody please turn on
Innocent.
Or Facebook and other social media to promote?
Innocent. I think you just joined.
I'd like to.
I think you need to press pause on the platform video. You can either be in the Hangout or on the platform. You get that?
Through these online channels, it would be a little confusing process, I'm sure. So let me give you the
Innocent, can you hear me?
Myself, right here. What is crowdsourcing? It's simply
using
yes. Could you please pause the video on the platform page, because you can follow either here on the Hangout where you are now or on the platform. But since we are in the Hangout, please stay in the Hangout and just pause, stop the video on the platform. Do you get that?
More and more people are connected.
Just go to the live page, live events page, and press stop, press pause. Do you know how to do that?
Yeah. So we paused you for now. So I'll keep going, and I'm sure you'll figure it out. Okay. Let's go back to the presentation. And let me see if there are any questions actually. Yeah, not yet. Good. So going back to crowdsourcing in the crisis situations. So we collected these bits and pieces of information from all available sources and made it accessible through this visually easy to represent web page. This is a screenshot, so it's not online, and the page is not online anymore because it's a long time ago. But if you zoomed in this map, you could go, you know, closer to the streets of the city like this, and all the bubbles, red bubbles that you see, and the numbers, it represent the reports and messages from people that are asking for assistance, for food, for other services. And very soon, at the beginning, we didn't expect it's going to be a useful application. We just wanted to try something. But 3 days later, we got a response from search and rescue teams in Port-au-Prince in Haiti telling us that this is the most up-to-date information source for them, and they encouraged us to keep mapping, because at that time simply there was no other source that would be able to collect the information in such a quick way and to put it on the map, right? Because if you don't have maps, you are like blind. If you are in a city that you don't know, well, simply you know that there are people who need help, but if you don't know where they are, well, you cannot find them on time. And this can be very critical in the moments of disaster like this. So we kept mapping. And let me just give you one example of how social media could be helpful. These are one of the messages that the search and rescue teams were getting. There are people trapped at Un-Bon-Pré near Naples Inn Hotel. So you get a message like this, but where is Naples Inn Hotel? If you don't have a map, and the maps of Port-au-Prince were really bad, you don't know how to find it. You cannot just go into the streets and ask people because the streets are blocked with rubble and everything. You don't know what is Un-Bon-Pré. So very often the search and rescue teams were getting this type of information but simply couldn't act upon them because they had no capacity to find more details. But they had no connection, but we had a connection. We were students, so we had an internet connection, so we could start searching. First, usually what we did, we tried to look at the guidebooks, right? Like A Lonely Planet, because that's a book where you find all the important facilities in those places, such as hospitals, markets. So usually places where many people ended up under the rubble. So actually Lonely Planet guidebook for tourists many times helped us to identify the location of such places. But unfortunately in this case the Naples Inn Hotel was not there. So what we did, we turned to Google Earth and satellite imagery, and we started looking around the parts of the city to try to find something that could point us in that direction. After some time, we knew in which part of the city most likely the hotel is, and we managed to identify the hotel by the swimming pool, because it has this nice blue color that you can really see from the air. And in that area, you can see it's a very poor area. Only the hotels are the ones that can afford to have a swimming pool. So by looking at the satellite imagery, we managed to identify the hotel. But the problem was that the message said it's near Nepean Hotel. So having just the hotel is not enough. And the last idea we had was, okay, let's try to ask the world. So we used Twitter to spread out a message. It's urgent, please retweet. We need address of Un Bon Prix near Nepean Hotel. People are trapped there. And we waited. We didn't know what's going to happen. And it took only some 3 to 4 hours. And we received a message through Twitter. The message was from a young girl. Later on, we found out she was from Canada. We never met her before, we never met her after, but she sent us information. There is a man called Marc-André Louis. He worked at that place. Call him. And she gave us his address, phone, and email address. This was like 2 a.m. at night when we were in Boston, and we were thinking, okay, so let's try to call the number. So we called the number, and on the other side of the line, there was Marc-André Louis, who was immigrant from Haiti, who lived in Brooklyn, New York. It turned out he really worked in Un Bon Prix. It turned out to be a bookstore, and he was able to give us precise locations and directions how to get to that place, so that we could share the exact GPS coordinates with the search and rescue teams. So you can see that the fact that people are more and more connected can really bring solution and savior in many ways to people. We can use social media not just to take pictures of ourselves and selfies and everything, but really we can use them to mobilize people to help. And this was the most amazing thing about it. It was bringing people from all around the world to help us. Because you can imagine it were hundreds and thousands of text messages, tweets, and other messages. And no organization, no traditional organization would have the power to process information in real time. But if you have hundreds and thousands of people connected all around the world in different time zones, you can really create a human machine that helps you with the whole process. We had dozens of people helping us putting things on the map. We had 1,000 Haitian volunteers who were mobilized through Facebook, who were translating text messages from Creole language to English. So it usually took 3 minutes from a person on the ground to send a text message in Creole language, then for us to receive it in Boston or elsewhere with English translation already. And very soon these Haitian volunteers were helping us in Skype, through Skype, to identify locations of buildings that we couldn't find on the map. Because usually there was always someone who said, oh yes, that's a school that I attended as a kid, or that's a hospital in my neighborhood. So with this human power, we managed to quickly present and bring life-saving information to humanitarian responders. And the people working with us were not, most of them were not experts on anything, or on mapping, or programming, or other stuff. There were people like you and me, simply people who had some time to donate. They had access to internet at school, at their homes, in their in coffee shops, and they joined for a couple of minutes or a couple of hours a day to process, to help us to process the data. And I'm sure some of you already know the application that I was mentioning. The application that we used was called Ushahidi, which in Swahili language means witness or testimony. It was founded by Kenyan bloggers after the post-election violence in 2008 to crowdsource and collect reports of incidents of violence around the country so that they could provide more up-to-date information to citizens and people. Of course, at that time in 2008, access to internet was limited, but through time, this application developed into a standalone application that now anybody can use it for whatever project he or she wants. And the amazing thing about Haiti was that the the community of people from all around the world was using application developed in Kenya, in Nairobi, to help people affected by disaster in Haiti. And I think this is the best illustration of the new world, the new media world that we live in, that people have the potential to work together, to communicate together, to help other people to improve their lives. There was a massive earthquake in Japan. You can see enormous amounts of processed information on their Ushahidi page called Shinsai, which in Japanese means the earthquake, where they were doing exactly the same. They were having many volunteers helping to sift through the thousands of Twitter messages coming from people affected by the earthquake and the tsunami and the Fukushima disaster at that time. There are many other examples. We were working also later on in Libya when there was a conflict, and at that time we were already closely working with the UN agencies, with UNHCR, collecting and processing information about the humanitarian needs of the population escaping the conflict. So you can already see here a little bit improved map, big map, different categories. So again, you are using people from all around the world to process information almost in real time to provide the decision makers and humanitarian actors with actionable information and data. We even started an organization. We call it the Standby Task Force. It's completely independent online volunteer community for life mapping. It simply is built on the experience from the disasters I was talking about. Because many people were asking, okay, what about next time if something happens? What are we going to do next? So we decided, okay, let's wait for the disasters. I mean, it's terrible to say, but let's have a community of hundreds of people who are able to quickly jump in and mobilize themselves to help whenever it is necessary. And there were many disasters, including the Nepal earthquake, when the Standby Task Force was activated by UN agencies and other actors. It doesn't have to be just for humanitarian disasters. I like this campaign from Egypt. It's called the harassment.org, and it's a project or campaign by civil society activists who are trying to expose the problem of sexual harassment, women's sexual harassment in the streets of Cairo. It's kind of a taboo in many societies, right, to be open about the fact that actually these incidents are happening in our streets. So this is a way how to bring it, how to visually represent it, right? These are reports and information about different types of sexual harassment that were spotted or reported throughout the city, and they use map to identify the locations where it is happening most often, so that they can push the authorities and police to provide more security in particular areas, etc., etc. So this harassment project wouldn't be successful by just putting up a map. Map, in this case, plays one role. It just simply visualizes the problem, but they are very active also in other campaigning channels. They launched a big campaign on social media. So if you are interested in the topic, just Google them, and you will see how they are dealing with this problem. And one of the last examples, so that there's too many maps already maybe for you, but we also worked in crisis like the refugee crisis, refugees fleeing from Somalia, where the UNHCR had a problem of tracking the migrants or the refugees, right? You have large, vast areas of desert, and obviously, if you have dozens of thousands of people out there, how do you find them to deliver the assistance? So together with an organization called TomNod, we had a fresh satellite imagery, and hundreds of people around the world were simply looking at the pictures and trying to identify if they see people there, if they see group of people, or if they see some shelter, and started tagging it onto the map. So again, this was almost real-time method how to provide those who provide assistance to people with actionable and actual data. If you're interested in conflicts, there's another interesting application called ELVA, who work in different areas. This example comes from Georgia, on the Caucasus, in the Caucasus region, where there is an internal conflict. I'm not going to go into the detail, but this platform is using especially SMS and mobile phones to collect real-time information about emerging conflicts in different areas, and are using it as an early warning system to other villages and other people in the area to warn them, look, there is a danger in that particular area, just take some precautions. So again, I really like it because it's community-based safety network. People leveraging the potential of mobile communication to inform themselves almost in real time about what is going on. Again, you can check their website, Elva website. This application is available, and the team is, I'm pretty sure, ready to work together or help anybody with their projects if they want to build such reporting systems. And the last one is about cleaning up the world. Nothing less than that. Let's Do It initiative. It comes from Tallinn, and it's an initiative, it's a community of people who started mapping the trash and waste all around their cities and countries. And through specific campaigns, they mobilize hundreds and thousands of people to clean it up. And I really like the idea of this community support, where really people from all around the world are already joined and really, manage to clean up the whole countries. I mean, nothing less than that. Like in Estonia, it was amazing how quickly actually thousands of people mobilized and simply cleaned up the country. So I could go on and on with examples like this, but my point I wanted to make in this part was that really we can use social media to effectively crowdsource information from the people and crowdsource the work or the volunteer work from online communities to provide a response that was never ever possible before we had internet and social media and mobile communication. Let me pause here a little bit and again turn back to you. If you might, I'm sure you might have some questions about these projects, so I'll be happy to answer them if I know the answer.
And we said before, the best thing is to actually type your questions in the chat facility below your screen.
And we have a little bit of video delay, so I'm gonna wait so that you have time to react. Okay, let me continue. I guess I will check again later on if there are other questions, and let's move to another method that I mentioned. Okay, give me a second to share the screen again. So if you remember, we were talking about different methods that can be used, not just self-promotion, but also other means of obtaining and sharing information. So we talked about crowdsourcing. Now let's focus on something that is called watchdog, or simply pushing for more accountability among those who are responsible for managing our societies. And I will give you some examples again. So maybe you've heard already the term watchdog. Simply a dog that starts barking and sometimes biting when sees something wrong happening. Traditionally, watchdog was called the media, that in open democratic societies that have the free media, they are playing the role of these so-called watchdogs. They are watching the politicians, the institutions, and other authorities, and if they see, let's say, corruption or something, going wrong, they bark. They write articles and they generate attention among the public, simply to provide more accountability in the society. So, but obviously, with social media, when almost anybody can be a reporter. I'm not saying necessarily a journalist, but reporter. Uh, Also, the citizens can become the watchdogs, and there are many initiatives that are deploying campaigns, projects, and tools to provide more transparency and openness to governments and other authorities. So simply citizens collaborating together towards more open and transparent governments. And what is also important is lowering the barriers between citizens and authorities. I will give you some examples, but in general, simply for citizens, very often, and you know it from your countries very well, I'm sure, and it's not a big difference from my country. It's not that easy to have an interaction with officials, with governmental officials, to provide feedback to what they are doing. And obviously, with social media, with more and more politicians and other stakeholders on social media, well, there are some new channels that we can use to push for more accountability. And it starts with elections, right? In many countries, I mean, the elections are the critical moment when the decision is being made about the future direction of where the country is going. And in many countries, elections are usually place or moment of conflict for many reasons. And usually there are many frauds happening during the elections, many wrongdoings, even violence happening during the elections. So again, you can use crowdsourcing to collect people's reports from the very local level on what's going on before, during, or after the elections. This is just one of many examples coming from Georgia, when the Transparency International launched a platform for people to start reporting what is happening during the elections, presidential elections in 2013. And of course, you still need observers and reporters on the ground who are there, who you can trust. But together with citizen reporting, you can really get much more awareness about what is happening, right? Because the reporters or the observers, they simply cannot be everywhere. They cannot witness everything. I was directly on the ground during those elections, being a reporter, and I know how difficult it is to get the real picture, because whenever you come to a village, to the election, house or building, well, they immediately, know that somebody's there, so it's difficult to actually see what's going on. But the ordinary people with cell phones, they can report the real situation. Again, for those of you from Kenya, you might be aware of Uchaguzi, which was a election monitoring platform organized by the Ushahidi team, who started the application Ushahidi back in 2008, collecting various kinds of information, including police action, security issues, hate speech, ballot issues, voter issues, and others. There was a phone number where people could report what's going on. This information was analyzed and then again provided to media and other stakeholders. So, well, enough of this crowdsourcing. I really like this example that kind of illustrates the lowering of the barriers between the citizens and the governments and local governments. There is an organization in my city, in Prague, in Czech Republic, called Prague Mothers. Right? So you can imagine who is it. It's mothers who are worried about the security, especially traffic security in our city, security for their children, especially. So they launched years ago a very nice project that was called Safe Waste to Schools, right? So children were asked to draw a map on a map of their area, to draw dangerous places that they encounter while they are on their way to school or from school. So, for example, non-functioning lights, missing crossing, or simply some dangerous places where they don't feel safe. And then they were collecting these maps in schools together with teachers, analyzing them, and then this organization took the results, went to the local offices, local authorities, and told them, look, these are some dangerous places, we need you to do something about it, right? And very often, they established good relationship with the local governments because they were a trusted organization. And they managed, really, in many cases, to improve the situation, that maybe more local policemen were sent to a particular area, or the lights were fixed, or simply any of these reported issues were fixed. And we met some 4 years ago on a workshop, and we thought, okay, so this is really cool, but this doesn't cover the whole city, and it's not very effective. So let's try to find a way how to engage all citizens to collect this reporting. And we got inspired by a British project called Fix My Street, where people can report through internet or mobile phones, holes in the streets or any problems in the traffic, in the transportation. And together we designed a platform called Pedestrians for Themselves, where simply any citizen with mobile phone or internet can report any troubles and problems in the streets of Prague. And thanks to the fact that this Prague Mothers organization was already a trusted partner for local municipalities and local governments, they managed to get their agreement that they will be acting upon the reports that are going through the platform. So till now, it's been dozens and hundreds of cases that were already solved after citizens reported them, and the local governments took actions. And I really like this, and this is nothing special. I mean, I know that also in your countries there might be projects like this where people report from the streets, but very often the problem is that it doesn't reach the ones who are responsible, right? There are reporting platforms where people report, but there's no guarantee that the responsible authority, responsible official will get this piece of information. So I just wanted to show that this is one of the good examples where it actually worked, that the barriers between the citizens and local authorities were put down simply through technology and social media applications. And of course, in the past, if you wanted to report trouble, you could go to the local municipality, file a complaint, but who would do that? Right? People are just too lazy to do that. You cannot do it on a daily basis. But with the mobile applications or internet, this really takes down the barrier that was out there in the past. This is example from Moldova, again using the Ushahidi application to collect these reports. But just a few other examples. It's in Czech language, so I'm sure you will not understand, but this is one of other tools. Here it is called demagog.cz, and it's simply tracking how much do Czech politicians lie or are telling the truth. On this web page, it's run by students of political science, so they are the ones who are actually fact-checking what politicians have said in the media, on the television, and are providing clear information about whether it was a truth, it was a lie, it was misleading, or simply if they cannot, they don't have information they need to prove or disprove that. Then they have many statistics for different political parties, where you can find actually which political party has most politicians that lie, etc., etc. Just to show you the web page, how it looks like. Guide you through that. As here, you can simply, check different politicians, see how they were telling the truth or how they were lying, etc., etc. So again, it's using volunteers to put more light on our politicians, on our authorities. And again, this platform is being run in many other countries as well. So there are already experiences and good practices to be shared if anything is interesting for you in this case. Okay, just checking the discussion platforms to see what the situation is. Okay, I'll keep going. If you are interested in open governments and in all these types of information, I just presented some of them, but there is a great place to go to find out more. And you do speak English, you do read English, so this shouldn't be a problem for you. It's Open Knowledge Foundation in the UK that collects and helps to design systems and good practices to simply put more transparency onto those that are responsible, on authorities, politicians, and others. So if you are interested, I'm not going to go to that webpage now. I think that's one of the things that you can do yourself. Just go there and check what all the interesting stuff they are doing and supporting. Maybe for some of you, it might be useful, for example, if you are planning or designing some future projects, future campaigns, and you need some inspiration for the project proposal. Well, you can check some of the examples here and move in that direction. And last example that I really enjoy, and I think it's amazing. Probably you personally witnessed the problem with trust on the internet and in the media. It's really getting more and more difficult for people like you and me to get to the right information, to understand what is true, what is a lie. This is just one of many examples. You have an image of a rocket tearing apart a truck and not exploding. And this image was used in many different in many different news outlets and web pages, but actually reporting it from totally different perspectives. On the first one, you can see the Russian version, the Ukrainian version, or the version on Al Jazeera that said that it was strikes against Gaza. So you can see that it's no longer really possible to verify all the pieces of information on the media, in the media and on the internet we get. There's a lot of manipulation, and the question is, how can we verify it? And luckily, there is a project that decided to mobilize people again to become investigative journalists. And they managed, and they founded themselves maybe only a year ago. They simply used the online tools, channels, social media to try to verify and investigate into what is happening. This image is from the crash site of the MH17 plane that was shot down over Ukraine a year ago. And probably you remember that almost 300 people died, and the plane, according to evidence that we have so far, was shot down by a missile that was launched from a particular place. But obviously there was a lot of propaganda and controversy around that. The Russians were blaming the Ukrainians for shooting down the plane. The Ukrainians were blaming Russians for shooting down the plane. Then there were a lot of crazy ideas of even, you know, the alliance, what did, you know, so it's really crazy to today, when you have events like this, to really see what is behind that. There was independent investigation that brought some evidence, but still there was a lot of propaganda around that. And what this community of citizen journalists, investigative journalists did, they started tracking information about the movement of these missile launch systems around that area. And actually there was a lot of content on YouTube videos where citizens were recording videos of the military equipment and vehicles being transferred from one place to another. But again, for one human, it's just impossible to be able to filter all these pieces of information. But if you engage a community of people, you can get some very interesting results. And for example, this Bellingcat community managed to really provide conclusive evidence of who was behind shooting down the plane, the plane of flight MH17, by simply tracking the movement of the missile launch system using pictures from Flickr, Instagram, pictures made by soldiers, to really put together these pieces and bring the whole story together. They were using Google route maps to identify how long does it take for a vehicle to get from one place in Ukraine to another one, calculate the distances to really provide a conclusive evidence of who was behind that incident. And since that time, they were verifying or investigating many other cases. So I encourage you, if you are interested, go to bellingcat.com to find out more how citizens can really become investigative journalists. They even managed to identify the exact location of some of the beheadings that were done by ISIS last summer, the beheading of humanitarian workers and journalists, simply by using Google Earth and other available sources. So it's really interesting, and I think it kind of gives us a glimpse into the future of journalism, that it's no longer just the case of journalists and professional media, but the citizens are becoming more and more these so-called watchdogs of democracy and watchdogs of the society itself. So let me ask you if there are any questions. Again, we have probably 10-second delay, so I will wait a bit for you to hear my request for questions.
And if I can add, Yaro,
yes,
what they should do is actually scroll down from the screen to be able to see the chat.
Yes.
Once you're on the platform in the live events page, you see the screen, and the chat facility is down below. So you need to scroll down in
Let
order
me show
to
it.
get to the right
Show
place
you.
to type in your questions.
Yeah, so here you are on the platform watching the video, and below you can see a place for chat.
Exactly.
And in the meantime, I would like to ask you, because we are slowly coming to an end of the session today, I would like to ask you to think about the projects alike I presented today. Please send me through email links to projects and campaigns that you think would be interesting to share with others. And next time we can start with a little discussion about them. What do you think about them, if they work or not? So please, if and Tom is asking already, very local action addressing local matters. Yes, I have a number of them, and I will prepare them also for the future to for the next session to start with them. But I would like to hear from you first. I'm sure you've heard about something. There is something in your countries that is successful or unsuccessful, and let's share it together. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Use my email. I'm sure you all have my emails because I was sending you the messages. And send me the links. And also, if you have any questions, think about them and send me them, and I will make sure that I have an answer for you in the next session. I'm sure, for example, that we have some participants from Kenya, and you might be very well aware about Shahidi or Uchaguzi. It will be nice to hear your feedback if you experienced that at that time, and if you, yeah, what are your thoughts about it? Okay. Yeah, okay, we have question from Ulan. Should we get an example of those projects which were initiated only by us, or can even get as an example both? Absolutely. If you have already experience with something like that, please do share it with us, with me through email, and let's prepare for the next session. But also, if you are not involved in such projects, feel free to send links to other interesting projects. Is it clear, Ulan? Okay, perfect. So,
Yaro, we have a question from Mohammed.
okay.
What he's written, I'm going to read to you. And the question is, do you think context is one of the key challenges for social media?
Context.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you expand a little bit more, please? Well, it's a challenge for obtaining information. As I said, it's no longer easy to fully understand what's going on. I mean, especially if there is such a sophisticated propaganda that is trying to, to disprove all the sources of information, then for people it's difficult to get the whole picture. And maybe this is what you were asking about, the context. Because on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, we are getting just bits and pieces of information. And it's just so many of them every day, right? One, there is a video about something, then there is link to some article, then there is link to another article. And for people who don't have time to really investigate, it's difficult to get the context. And this is where I think we still really need professional, good quality media and journalists these days. We need them more than ever.
Right.
even though the people can become reporters themselves, I mean, they will never be able to provide deep analysis of certain events. So we still really do need good quality professional media and journalism, even more than ever before, to help us to get more context, more deeper understanding, more analysis of what's going on in particular cases and events. So I hope this was answer to your question.
Mohammed has just written a bit more about that. Another question, I suppose. Let me read it to you, Yaro.
Yes.
The question is how to reach mass community by using social media. Please give us an example.
Okay, I will, and this is planned for one of our next sessions. So please join us. Join us next time. It's not that I don't want to give you the answer right now, but I'm planning to focus on that. Really, in this first session, I just wanted to get you maybe a little bit excited about social media, and that it's really not just about teenage girls taking selfies. It can really be a tool that connects people in an unprecedented way to be more effective in pushing the governments responsible and helping people. And as I said, later on we'll get more closer to the individual tools and networks, and I will also share with you my experience from one of the campaigns that I was involved in, or I'm still involved in, and I think it could be one of the good practices of how to use social media to address large amount of people around a certain topic.
Thank you, Jan. You have a question from Giza in the chat.
Okay. Probably. Is it on the platform or in the Hangout?
It's on the platform. I can read it to you.
I think it could be one of the good practices. Sorry. Do you mean? Could you please recommend any readings on crowdsourcing? I'm sorry?
It is from Nargiza Sidikova.
Yes. Okay. Nargiza, please let me get back to you in between the sessions to put together the list of books or any other resources on crowdsourcing. I mean, there are a number of them, but I would like to collect the ones that I think actually are useful, okay, are not just describing something, but actually give some step-by-step guide. But trust me, it's not going to be that easy. I mean, there's no one-size-fits-all. I mean, there are so many different types of projects and so many different ways how crowdsourcing can be used. So it would help me if you could write down in the chat if you are specifically interested in some field, if it's related to transparency of governments, or if it's related to humanitarian, or if it's related to conflict, what it is, and it gives me more understanding that I need to give you the links you need. Okay? Yes, so please feel free to write it down in the chat or to my email. Again, my email, let me just put it up on the screen, is j.valuch@gmail. So I'm sharing my screen again. Okay, so this is my email. So feel free to ask any of those questions. We meet next time, I guess, on Monday, so we have plenty of time to prepare ourselves. So just to repeat, your homework is to collect examples of crowdsourcing or watchdog especially from your regions, from your countries, and let's share it together with others. Also, the best thing would be if you already have some direct experience with those projects. On my side, I will prepare the list of resources where you can learn more about crowdsourcing, and I will also look into more examples about how local initiatives were using these different platforms. And I think there was another one. I will find it back in the chat. It just slipped my mind for now, but I will prepare myself. So next time we can start with that. And I'm not sure if there's any other question. If not, let's slowly come to the conclusion. And as a teaser for next time, let me just introduce the topic I want to cover, and we'll be talking about campaigning. Okay, so we talked about self-promotion, we talked about crowdsourcing, we talked about watchdog, and now it's about campaigning. That means using media or communication channels to change something within certain time frame by engaging certain target audiences. So it will be introduction to campaigns. It would need whole another training itself, but I will share my experience with hate and violence and racism, and a campaign that we designed to effectively target young people. So this, I believe, will answer one of your questions that you had about how the social media could effectively be used to reach large numbers of people. So this will come next time. It will be a lot of about hate, a lot of about violence, and I'm pretty sure it's one of the issues that are also, unfortunately, actual in your communities and in your countries. So I believe hate is an example that goes across cultures and across borders, unfortunately. So this is all from my side for today, and I don't see any new questions. So, well, bye-bye for now, and see hopefully most of you next Monday at the same time. And again, feel free to join the Google Hangout or feel free to follow us on the platform itself. Okay, so have a great week. Tiho, Tom, is there anything you want to add?
Thank you, Aaron. No, you've said it all. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for your attention. As Yaro said, and as you know from the timetable that you received from Tom, the next session is at the same time on Monday. Please do join us and be in touch in the meantime regarding all those issues that Yaro mentioned. Also, for those of you who experienced technical problems, do get in touch with us. Let's find out what it was that impeded your access to the broadcast or the platform, and we'll solve it. Thanks again, and see you on Monday.
I guess we are still live, Theo.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Um, let me actually stop the broadcast.